everyone, I'm Jennifer, and this is Movie Talk. Now, as I said in my last video, I decided it would be fun to do, continue with the Tolkien movies, and as I had done The Hobbit prior to last week's video, so I am continuing with that thread, and this week's video, or movie, is The Two Towers. This is the second movie in the Lord of the Rings trilogy and was released in 2002 and follows the events of the Fellowship of the Rings movie, which was released in 2001, and sets up the events for the Return of the King movie, which was released in 2003. This movie, being part of the trilogy, had the same actors in it, or main cast of actors, as the Fellowship of the Rings did. But we are introduced to several new characters. Chief among them are three members of the Riders of Rohan, or the Rohan Kingdom. One being the King of Rohan, who is played by Bernard Hill, and the other two being his niece and nephew, Arwen and Arwen, and if I'm mispronouncing the names, I'm sorry, some of the Tolkien names are very hard to pronounce. Arwen is played by Miranda Otto, and her brother Eormine is played by Carl Urban. I believe is how you say his last name. We also see Gollum, fully see him in this movie. We're in the Fellowship of the Rings. When we see him fully, he is at a distance, so we don't get a real good look at him. And when we do see him up close, we really just see like a hand and maybe his eyes. So we actually see the full character in this one. He actually looks really good. And he is voiced by Andy Skirts, and he also, I believe is how you say his last name, and he also did, as Gollum is a computer animated character, he also did the motion capture movements that brought Gollum to life, which I actually found very interesting. Usually you have one person doing that and another person doing the voice, and he did both. We're also introduced to, and I was very disappointed that I could not find the person who did this character's voice. We're also introduced to Treebeard, who is an Ent, or tree shepherd. And for those of you who have not read the book, or who have read the book but missed this, as I missed it too, the Ents are actually very big. When I first read the book and I read the Ents, I was actually picturing them to be about as big as Merry and Pippin were. And so when I saw the movie, I'm thinking, oh, okay, so we're going to see someone dressed up in like a tree costume, a very good tree costume or something, but it's going to be about the same size as them. And he was actually huge, and I don't know how I missed that part in the book. I just did. And anyways, this movie basically picks up where the Fellowship of the Rings leaves off. I think it takes place about a week after that movie ends, I believe, up to a week after. So it follows fairly close on the heels of the Fellowship of the Rings, and the book does as well. So these movies actually mirror the books fairly well. Frodo and Sam have left the Fellowship to destroy the rings. Frodo having made the decision to go on alone, and Sam going with him because he promised Gandalf that he would not leave Frodo alone. Boromir has passed on, having been killed by orcs at the end of the first movie, and Merry and Pippin have been captured by the same orcs and are being taken to Saruman, who wants all four hobbits because he knows one of them has the ring, he just doesn't know which one. And that leaves Strider, or Aragorn, however you want to call him, Legolas, and Gimli desperately following the orcs in the hope of rescuing Merry and Pippin. Now, Merry and Pippin manage to escape and find themselves excuse me, in the forest where they meet Treebeard. And Treebeard is really the only Ent who we're actually told the name to, and he's really the only one that talks. And again, I was very disappointed that I could not find his voice actor, as I really would have liked to have known who did his voice. So if any of you out there actually do know who did the voice of Treebeard, or find out or find who did, or learn who did the voice of Treebeard, please let me know in the comment section, as I really would like to know. Anyways, they find Treebeard, and he basically saves them from the orc pursuing them and takes them to a white wizard. Now, this white wizard is not who you think it is. I was a little surprised at first, too, as I thought it was Saruman, but it's not. It's actually Gandalf. He returns as a white wizard. And he sends Merry and Pippin off with Treebeard for their protection, and he goes in search of Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn, and points them in the direction of Rohan. Now, the King of Rohan is being manipulated by his most trusted advisor, who is a servant of Saruman, and they're able to set the king free, but the advisor is banished rather than killed. And he goes directly to Saruman, and he launches an attack on them, and they go to this fortress that served them well, but the problem is the advisor knows all the weak points and the strong points of the fortress. However, all is not lost, as elves come to help the people of Rohan, and the riders of Rohan, led by the king's nephew, come to their aid as well. And as I said, this movie basically is setting up the alliances that will become important later on in the final movie. We also see it also takes us a little closer to, with Frodo and Sam and Gollum, as Gollum becomes their guide, as he either escaped or was set loose. They're never actually very clear on that, from Mordor, and can lead them back there. We see that as well. And we're also brought to the kingdom, one of the kingdoms of men. I forget the name of it, and I will find out where it is in time for the third movie, as it does play a pinnacle part in the third movie. They're taken there where they actually meet Boromir's younger brother, or older brother, or his brother. I don't remember which. They don't say in the movie whether he's older or younger. I think they do in the book, but I can't remember. And like his brother, he is determined to bring the ring to his father to be used as a weapon. And in the end, Sam and Frodo and Gollum actually start moving even closer to Mordor. I don't want to give away too much in case you haven't seen the movie or read the books, or either or. So, again, very good book, or very good movie. We, and by we I mean me and my family, actually have the extended version, which means we have the movie, the version we have has a lot more scenes in it than the theatrical release does. It's actually on a span of 2 DVDs. You get halfway through in one DVD and you have to pick up in the other half. And again, it's a really good movie. One of my three favorite scenes in the movie is, they all take place on the second disc, and, well, no, 5, excuse me, but they all take place on the second disc. One is right at the beginning of the second disc, where, they're moving towards the, fortress, and I can't remember the name of the fortress. And Gimli's talking to the niece about dwarves and whatnot, and saying how no one believes there's female dwarves, blah 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 blah, because their look and their way of talk is so similar to the males. And she looks back at Aragorn. He's like, "It's the beards," and he does like this and whatnot. And he whispers, "It's the beards," very quietly, so like she can hear, but Gimli can't. And then Gimli's horse kind of takes off, and he falls off, and he's like, "Oh, it was intentional. That was intentional." And the niece is laughing and everything, and her uncle is like, he hadn't seen her smile like that or laugh like that in a long time. That's one of my favorite scenes. Another one is, I'm trying to think. It's right before the battle. Gimli is standing right next to Legolas, and he can't see over the battlefield as it's like right here on him. Like, this is the top of the battlefield, and you see the top of his head, but he can't see anything. And he says to him, like, you couldn't have picked a spot in the back. And then he's, like, the orcs are there, and they're making all this noise, and he says to Legolas, what's going on? And Legolas says to him, would you like me to explain it to you, or would you rather I go and find you a box to stand on? Another one, like, the first three involve Gimli. Is when he and Aragorn are going to attack the orcs, and he's like, toss me. And Aragorn looks at him, he's like, I cannot make the jump. You'll have to toss me. And then Aragorn goes to him, he's like, don't tell the elf. And by elf, he means Legolas. And then my final one, it's actually a two-parter scene, but it ties in there. It's when the Ents are battling against Saruman at his fortress, because they originally weren't going to get in the war, and they realized that he had destroyed so many trees, and they are the keepers of the trees, that they were in the war. And Merry and Pippin are throwing rocks. They're sitting on top of Treebeard, like on his shoulder and on his head, and they're throwing rocks at the orcs that are there guarding the tower, and they hit one of them. I can't remember if it was Merry or Pippin, because they have a very hard time telling Merry and Pippin apart, because the actors who portray them look very similar. And to find out who the actors of Merry, Pippin, Frodo, Sam, Legolas, Gandalf, Gimli, and Aragorn are, just please watch my video on the Fellowship of the Rings. As I mentioned, their voice actors there in that movie, or in that video. Anyways, Merry or Pippin throws the rocks at the orcs, and Treebeard's like, oh, a hit, a splendid hit, kind of thing. And then at the end of the movie, they find, Merry and Pippin find this Saruman's, and I believe I'm saying his name right, and if I'm mixing him up with the one who actually the ring belongs to, I apologize. Some of the names are very, very similar, and it's very easy to confuse them. But I believe it's Saruman. And they find his storehouse, and then they find smoking tobacco. And one of them, again, I can't remember who it is, says, should we share this with Treebeard? And the other one says, oh, I don't think he'd understand. Dead plants and all. Might be a distant relative, kind of thing. In other words, let's not tell him and upset him that we are smoking plants. But let's do it. But let's smoke it anyways, kind of thing. Which I just thought was very funny, because then you see Treebeard kind of looking into the doorway of the storehouse. And I just want to get off topic here for a little bit. For any of, just to kind of give you an idea of what Treebeard looks like, for any of you who have seen Guardians of the Galaxy, the first Guardians of the Galaxy, not the second one, Treebeard looks a lot like Groot, except he's a lot bigger, and he actually has a moss beard, where Groot didn't. But design-wise, they're very similar. I don't know if it was the same studio that did both movies, so I can't say one way or the other, but the design-wise, they're similar. It's this Treebeard speaks where you can actually understand what he's saying and Groot doesn't, but like I said, their design is very similar. So yeah, I liked, those are like my five, six favorite parts of the movie, because again, they're funny. They're just really funny scenes. Another thing I really, really liked about this movie is that you were actually seeing the relationship between Legolas and Gimli kind of evolve, because particularly if you've seen or read The Hobbit, the elves and dwarves don't really get along with each other. They don't like each other. And here you have a dwarf prince, or the cousin of a dwarf prince. I don't really know what his rank would be, but Gimli's cousin. It's mentioned in the first movie that Gimli's cousin was a prince of the Mines of Mordor, which was a dwarf kingdom, so I'm assuming Gimli is some kind of dwarf royalty, but if I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, I apologize for it, because they don't really come out and say what his title is, but between a high-ranking dwarf, we'll just say, a very high-ranking dwarf, and a elven prince, we see them kind of becoming friends. To the point where when they're on horseback a lot and they can't spare a horse for Gimli, he rides on a horse with, like, or where they don't have enough horses, he actually rides on a horse with Legolas. And also they have like this competition with each other, and where they keep track of how many of the enemy they kill, and then they compare it. And I'm going to make a comparison again. For those of you who have watched Star Wars The Clone Wars, Anakin and Ahsoka did basically the same thing. They kept track of how many battle droids they destroyed, and then they would compare it. So Gimli and Legolas basically do the same thing, and I'm not sure exactly 100% sure when Clone Wars came out, whether it came out before this or after this. So I think one was actually inspired by the other for that. Unless, of course, that was actually in the book. I don't remember. It's been a while since I've read the books. Like, that could have actually been in the book. If not, it was just a cute little add-on that I actually liked. So again, really good movie. Overall, really good. Again, I like Treebeard, excuse me, design. I really did. The Ents were hands down my favorite character group in this movie. Sad to say we don't really see them in Return of the King. I would have liked to, but we don't. And I like Gollum's design in this movie. I know I mentioned this before in my video on The Hobbit, but his design in this movie looks really good, considering the fact that he's supposed to be a deformed by a solitary excuse me, by a solitary nature. After he finds the ring and the magic of the ring, he's supposed to be a very deformed creature that was very similar beforehand to a hobbit. He looks like that in this movie, or in the animated version of The Lord of the Rings and in the animated version of The Return of the King, he looks more like an anamorphic frog. So again, I really like this design for him better. Trying to think here. So I can't think of anything else. I guess that's all I'm going to say on this video. My question for you for this week is, what was your favorite group, like, creature group, or just plain group in this movie? Was it the Ents? Or did you like the elves? Did you like the Riders of Rohan? Did you like the guardsmen that worked with Bromir's brother? I cannot remember his name, and I can't remember what they were called. I believe they were called the Guardsmen of Gondor. I think Gondor was the name of the kingdom or the city that they protected. That actually sounds like it's right. Or did you like the little trio or group of four, as I guess we have to include Gandalf in that, that is remaining of the Fellowship of the Rings, you know, not excluding excluding the four hobbits. So, you know, leave your comments, leave your answer in the comment section. Feel free to leave your comments in the comment section. Also feel free to like and subscribe. Both help me out a lot. Also feel free to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I will have the information in the description portion. I'm Jennifer. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you again next time.